Welcome everyone to our first webinar, again in the series of our webinars this fall. I'm so happy to have Lori Baker here on my team, Employer Development Coordinator, and myself, Employer Relations Manager with the Work Integrated Learning and Co-op Office. This is a short webinar with a Q&A at the end, so feel free to ask any questions. It will stop as we go through. Just wanted to quickly acknowledge Dalhousie is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We are all treaty people. And I wanted just to kind of mention, and I know a lot of times people skip through this, but I really think it's important to recognize there's three components to this statement. The first is acknowledgement that the land that Dalhousie sits on is part of Mi'kma'ki, the territory of the Lenape. The second is the acknowledgement of the territory as both ancestral and unceded, recognizing that the Peace and Friendship Treaty signed between the British Crown and the Mi'kmaq, unlike many other historic treaties in Canada, did not involve surrender of the land. Finally, we are all treaty people reflects that Peace and Friendship treaties apply to all parties involved, Indigenous and settler alike. And given that, this week was our day to celebrate and really reflect on this, I thought it's important just to kind of, read this a little bit more fully. We also recognize that African Nova Scotians are distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Having resided in the region for over 400 years, African Nova Scotian contributions to Nova Scotia and Canada began well over 150 years before Canada became a country. African Nova Scotians came to the province through enslavement or through fleeing enslavement elsewhere and continue to experience all manner of structural, systemic, and individual discrimination. Until 1961, more than half of all Black people in Canada were African Nova Scotian. The province of Nova Scotia identifies African Nova Scotians as a founding culture. So I think it's, again, very important to recognize the contributions and the challenges that still remain. To get into our agenda, it's going to be a quick go through this agenda with an introduction, objectives, DAL at a glance, WIL Co-op, who are we? Your role as a supervisor, talking about student expectations, regular check-ins, performance issues, Q&A. And we'll also be sharing this presentation and the recording with those that are in the meeting today. So quick glance, over 21,000 students at Dalhousie, 62% are from outside Nova Scotia, which is usually a big shock to a lot of people when I talk to them. 23% international, 115 countries represented. Over 3,400 students take part in co-op work terms and internships each year. And that number is growing for Work Integrated Learning. Just to give you an idea of how Dalhousie is structured, we have our department, which is Work Integrated Learning and Co-op Ed, which includes all of the programs there from computer science, engineering, science, a master's of resource and environmental management, sustainability, bachelor community design, environmental design studies, masters of planning, masters of architecture. Then we have our colleagues in management career services. So those are all your commerce, management, corporate residency, MBA, hiring needs you may have, as well as our Bissett Student Success Center, where you can post your non-co-op, your full-time, part-time, summer, casual, volunteer, all of this is at no charge. So yeah, so just quickly, we pretty much touched on this. So WIL Co-op, is WIL Integrated Learning and Co-op Ed, is 29 programs across 4 faculties and 1 college. From everything from architecture, computer science, engineering, planning, science, and sustainability. And in our programs, we have approximately 2,400 work terms per year and growing. All right, Lori, over to you.
Thank you, Theresa. where I missed the first 5 minutes, I am just wondering if Theresa asked, is anybody here a first-time supervisor of a co-op student?
I did not.
Okay, so is anybody here supervising a co-op student for the first time?
I am. It's Tanya from HRCE in the operations department. We have had co-op students in finance, but this is the first time for me supervising.
Okay, well, that's great. But I mean, to hear that you wanted to join in on this session. So I'll get to the information now. We're probably going to start putting this out each term at the start of each term. So that way we send out an email at the start of each term, thanking supervisors for hiring and sending some information, but we'll also make this available for people who have questions.
Lori, we have a
yes.
hand up from Laura.
Okay, yes, Laura, what is your question?
No, it wasn't really a question. It was just that I'm also a first-time co-op supervisor. I've been a co-op student.
Great.
We love that. We love when the students are now supervisors.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this is all information that we send, but we wanted to present it to you and answer any questions. So it's important to keep in mind that as a co-op supervisor, it's more than just supervising somebody to do their tasks and make sure they're done. We really like supervisors to be co-educators as well. So you're not just supervising, but you're helping to educate them. They're becoming young professionals. So be actively involved in their work term learning experience and try to provide challenging career-related work experience. I often hear that supervisors have work put aside for their student, thinking that it will take them a week to do, and they've got it done in the afternoon. So it's really good to have planning done in advance. That's why it's good to sit down with your student right at the start and set some goals and objectives for the work term, to let them know that you're going to be meeting with them throughout the work term to see how they're progressing and if they're meeting your goals and if you feel they are meeting your goals. And then, oh, sorry, Theresa, I lost my slide. Thank you. All right, next slide, please. So part of that is providing your direction and feedback to ensure that the student is working towards your expectations. But also it is important to treat a student the same as any other employee in the matter of rules, regulations, and discipline. And we like to really, really stress this. Contact us if there's any concerns with attendance, quality of work. Please do not, wait for us to hear from us. We do try to contact every student and supervisor halfway through the work term. That may happen with a phone call, a visit, or a survey. But if there's any questions or concerns, get in touch with us right away. So is there any questions about this so far before I get into the next part? Okay, great. On to the next slide, please, Theresa. So defining student expectations, it starts with some of the most basic things, like providing that safe environment. So I would imagine you're probably working with your human resources department. Maybe you have a formalized onboarding process. If not, this is where these slides and information can help you if you're working more independently. But make sure that your office, as its basics, has the requisite safety and provide environmental briefings to students, your general liability coverage. That includes, we really want to bring to attention the EDIA of today, the equity, diversity, inclusion. You have to provide an environment free from harassment and discrimination and respectful of EDIA. So again, if you have any more in-depth questions about this or want some more information, please get in touch with us and we will help you with that. Then there's your basics, like tell your student where they're supposed to show up on the first day and what time, and maybe how they should dress and if they should bring anything. So make sure there's somebody there to greet them, introduce them to the team, take them for a tour of the facilities. Again, going back to those safety procedures, this can often be overlooked, but it's very important. Try and make sure, I know sometimes there's challenges with equipment, but try and make sure their workspace is ready, they have their supplies, They have access to the internet and the data systems. And for remote work, make sure that you've made arrangements for the pickup or delivery of equipment and supplies. So does anybody have any questions about this slide before I move on to the next one? No? Okay, next slide, please, Theresa. So this is also very important and can avoid any problems down the road. Make sure you make it clear to students what their salary and benefits are, when they're going to get paid, overtime and time off. Maybe there's some sort of flex policy. I know quite often within IT especially, there's a little bit of flexibility there. I've known some students have been able to make their own hours. Maybe they want to work 10 to 6. Make sure these things are clear so there's no questions down the road. Their cell phone and computer use. Do you want to make sure that, you know, somebody's not having their cell phone out on their day at desk, making personal calls? Make it clear that's not expected at work. Using social media at work. Again, the dress code, the sick days. So it's just really important to go over this, because if a student doesn't know, then they might be doing things that they're not supposed to be doing at work and be shocked later when they're reprimanded about that. It's also clear to point out, like, who exactly are they reporting to? Sometimes you have your student on a team, they might be reporting to a couple of people. That can get confusing for them if different people are telling them things are priorities. How do they prioritize when they have two important people asking them for things? So please make that clear to them. Again, as mentioned in the last slide, it's good to go over the job descriptions and goals, including the students' goals. And as part of their work for Dalhousie and their academic work term, they do have some things they have to do, which will come up on another slide. But it is good to talk to your student about what they want to learn and do as well. I know some supervisors will kind of tailor the job a little bit more once a student starts and they know what their strengths and interests are. So that's greatly appreciated. And we know it's not always possible, but it is appreciated by everyone if you can do that. And provide any resources or training that they need to come up to speed. And please jump in with any questions. Again, this is informal, and this was going to be our practice try today. So you're all of our practice people for this first time we've offered this session. So please, if there's any questions, just put them in the notes or raise your hand. Okay, so now your students onboarded, they've met people, they should know what they're supposed to be doing. Hopefully they're working away on the activities that you've planned for them. So you're probably a couple of weeks in by now, maybe 3 weeks or so, and you want to start thinking about, well, how often are we going to meet? Quite often it's very structured, and employers will have meetings with their students once a week, or maybe a morning check-in of about 5 minutes. So it is important to do this. Sometimes students, especially on their first work term, can be a little quiet and not want to question things. Please encourage them to ask questions, to make sure that they know what they're doing, to clarify the expectations. You don't want them to go off and work for a week on something, thinking they're doing a great job, and then come back and it was not at all what you wanted done, and that's essentially a week wasted. So do those regular check-ins. Provide time and support for student to act on feedback as well. So hopefully the people who have students with you this term so far, things are going well. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that once we finish our presentation. But if there is any issues or concerns, students need time to improve upon that. So give them that time and support. Tell them what you want to have done and when you expect it to be completed. Also, if they're an engineering student or a computer science student, if you don't have somebody directly on your team, or a science student, if you don't have somebody on your team that has the same academic background as the student, it's really wonderful if you can introduce them to other people at the company who they could maybe have like a lunch with, just to gain more professional development in their field as well. So that again ties into students' career interests and expected learning incomes. Our science students do have to do learning outcomes, sorry. So here we go on to the next slide. So students actually do have academic requirements. While they're out working for you full time, they also have to do some reflective learning on our Brightspace platform. Students don't have to do this you don't have to give them time to do this during work hours. This is for them to do on their own. But if you would like to be more involved in coaching and mentoring, feel free to ask them about what they're doing in their reflective learning. They're generally doing things like identifying what skills they were hoping to develop on a certain task, and do they feel that they did develop them. So in addition to this, each different program has a different requirement that they have to do for their faculty. Excuse me. So we don't share that information with supervisors, but if you would like to know what's required of your student, you can ask today at this session. You can send me an email afterwards and I can send you that information. It's just a bit lengthy right now to go through, but I'll just give you some examples. For example, industrial engineering. They probably have the most work to do because they have to do put their experience records up on Brightspace. So all the engineering students have to do this. It's to keep track of their work so that they can get some credit towards Engineers of Nova Scotia for the professional designation. They have to do a work term technical memo. On their final work term, they have to do a work term report. They also have to do keep a journal, a handwritten journal for the faculty of engineering, the industrial engineering department. So the different disciplines have different things to do. Again, it's all on their own time, but if you want to be involved and support them, that's greatly appreciated. And then, as I mentioned, at around the halfway point, you're going to hear from the co-op office. Please know if your student is on their first work term, second work term, third work term, or fourth, because it's going to differ depending on which work term they're on. For the first work term, we always contact the student and supervisor to do a full work term check-in process where we'll ask you, it's just, again, a conversation. We're going to ask the student what they're learning. We're going to ask you how often you meet. Have you been giving students feedback? And if you, in advance of that check-in, want to know more about what questions are asked or the format, again, please let us know, or I can share that with you today. Students on their more senior students on their third and fourth work term, we're going to send them a survey. And as well, their supervisor is going to get a survey. And in that survey, we will ask, do you want a personal check-in? And then we can provide it. So that's for the midterm check-in and as well the final performance review. So part of us telling you all this and having the midterm check-in is to make sure that you're working with your student and you're getting the best you can out of them. So, and that they're doing their best so that when this final performance appraisal comes your way, it's not going to be a shock to a student how you evaluate them. And this is a requirement from the co-op office, the final performance review. We email you out a link. You can complete the whole form online. It's fairly easy to fill in. It's mainly drop-down menus of choices, but you do have some space. Oh, I think somebody has their hand up.
Hi, Laurie. It's Peter Drake
Hi,
from
Peter.
Hi there, Peter Drake from Nova Scotia Health. I am IT department. I just want to
Peter.
confirm. You mentioned a few slides back that there's some requirements for the students. Do they have this information when they start their co-op, or is it sent to them during the co-op? How do they know they need to do these things?
They know this because it's part of the course they're doing on Brightspace. It outlines all the boxes they need to tick, so to speak, to pass the academic work term. So yes, they know this. Some students maybe, people are people, so maybe they're not as on top of things. And there has been the odd student who didn't know, but it's very rare. So they should know this. But again, you can ask them about it. So that at the start of the term, like, what are your academic requirements for this work term? So that way, if they don't know, they can get in touch with us right away, or you can let me know and I'll send it off.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Laurie.
You are welcome. Yes, so again, all this is working towards the final performance appraisal. This is an important part of their career, especially if they get an outstanding one. So we do need this back, and it has to be done even if a student's with you for 8 months. We need one for each 4-month period. We have a rubric for performance appraisal, which I can share if anyone wants to see it. The main thing to know is that to pass the work term, there's the one section in there called overall performance, and students need to be getting at least a satisfactory on that. So the breakdown is at the very top, we've got outstanding, then we've got excellent, above average, satisfactory, and needs improvement. So that's the breakdown of that. I think I will put the rubric up on the screen. So I don't know if you can, hopefully I can share at the same time that Theresa's sharing. Oh, you know what? My rubric is for the worksite visit. Can you see that, Theresa? Can everybody see the rubric?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
See it.
Okay. So it's a lot of, it really, so on the left, we've got things like their work performance, quality of work, volume of work, professional judgment, initiative. So these are the kinds of questions we're going to bring up at the midterm check-in. And then we've got interpersonal skills and relationship building. So students' ability to communicate. Do they have to ask for information from other people in other departments? Are they out on a work site where they have tradespeople? Are they being professional and responsible? There's also professional growth. Their dependability in terms of attendance, punctuality, dress, and their reflection, whether they're able to make improvements and reflect on their work term. So this is what we're covering. If you want to have copies of any of this, please let us know. I think for me to get the rubric for the final performance appraisal, I would have to take time now to go into the performance appraisal, download that. So I'm not going to do that right now, but it's going to be more of the same showing up. Okay, I'll stop